Okay, to make our molds, these are the ingredients you are going to need. Gloves, must. 100% silicone, clear is the best, I think. I would say that each bottle will make about 1.5 molds, so do the math on that. Cheesecloth. This is to hold the different layers of silicone together. You're going to end up completely trashing tools, so just keep that in mind. Also, this table is a wreck, so do this in an area where you can make a big mess. Making the holds, you're going to need fiberglass and extra hardeners, liquid hardener. You also need a bunch of additive like sand additive from drywall or dirt from your... Alright, we're going to try and make some holds today in the way I consider to be the easiest. So what you want to do is get a little bit of soap on these holds between both where the silicone's going to adhere to them and where the silicone's going to meet the base layer, like this wood for instance. Using 100% silicone. I like to kind of get it in the overhanging section of the hold, like that. I do the same here, and it's kind of messy. Try and do just 2 at once here. I'd suggest you just start with just 1. And I just kind of wrap it around the hold. A little bit of extra there. And you want to get a nice clean scraper. Put a little bit of soap on it. Soap and some water here. And then just kind of clean this up. Make it nice and smooth. Probably just have to kind of keep dipping the scraper in the soap and water. And you don't want to be able to touch the hold at all. So there should be about, like a 1/4 inch gap or 1/4 inch of silicone between the air and the hold. And it totally doesn't work if the silicone starts grabbing onto your scraper, so just keep it, lots of soap on there. What I'm doing here. So you only have so much time to work with this stuff, so that's another good reason to just do 1 at a time. But that one looks pretty good. I don't see any gaps. We'll do the same thing with this one. I probably got kind of a lot of extra silicone on this, unfortunately, but 'tis the nature of the beast. Okay, a lot of videos advise cheesecloth. I do also. I recently just put one together without it though, and I'm real curious to see how it holds up. But I think it'll actually be alright. And this, unfortunately, was the last piece of cheesecloth I had, so putting it on there basically for illustration purposes. Put a little bit of water on it, and you can kind of manipulate it around into the hold. Just going to try and make these one big, but I think I'll cut it. No, I may mess up the form that way, so just leave it. Put a little bit more silicone on top, and we're just going to do the same thing we did with this scraper a second ago. Get some soap and some water on it and cover the cheesecloth, and that'll be a nice strong mold that should last you for some time, really. I think I'll actually cut these in two once they have solidified. So that is how that's done. We'll take a look at those once they dry. Just want to show you all some stuff while these are drying up. They're still sticky, so yeah, those are the 5 that I made. These were the 2 that I made originally with just the silicone in a bucket that I had such bad luck with, but I cleaned them up with a scraper that had a bunch of soap and water on it. I guess I didn't do the best job right there, but these are the last 2 that we made right here, and you can see those look real good. And I did that one off camera. But if you got the patience for it, you know, you'll end up with a bunch of holds, as you can see. These haven't been these need to be drilled and sanded and all that, and some people put bolts in the mold so they don't have to drill, but I don't find any real issue with it. Just drill through and put a washer. These are kind of messy, but they'll clean up a little bit with being sanded. Here's some of the pinches I made. These look really bad, but I guess they're unique. Here's some. This is from the dirt method and a plastic bag. I'll show you later about that. These are from a silicone mold, and you can see they're all pretty uniform. If you just stick with one color, that really is the easiest way to go. Unless you got your fiberglass mix dialed, then you can start adding 2 colors, and sometimes they end up neat, and you can do silly stuff like this one. I took the leftover fiberglass around the bucket that I used to mix it up. I kind of squeezed it, and then I cut it in, and I put these in the bottom of the mold, and then this is what happened. So that's kind of neat. This one is a result of one set of fiberglass didn't set as quickly as the gray didn't set as quickly as the gold. So I think that's kind of a neat feature, but it was a mess, and you don't want to do that. So you know, got this whole bucket of holds, you know, big jugs, little crimpers. Still, like I say, they still need to be cleaned up. One reason we do the plastic on the holds like this is because that'll happen otherwise. The dirt will straight up solidify in with the fiberglass, which I guess makes it unique and realistic. But this one I use saran wrap for with the dirt method instead of the silicone, and you can see that's crazy shiny. Probably a little bit adverse to climbing. We'll see once we get it on the wall. These are still kind of finishing up, and when I pulled them out, the blue was still pretty soft compared to the red, so I don't know if that was just because the blue was on the bottom of the dirt mold, or because I didn't have enough hardener in the blue mix as opposed to the red. And these are kind of a mess right here, so we'll see how those end up. Probably not well. Another method I've been using to make holds instead of the silicone molds is a dirt mold. I bought this foundry sand and made these. I'll show you later how my method for making these, but then I found, why did I pay that money for that foundry sand when you can just use good old dirt? So I have been using just dirt, and I've had varying degrees of success with it so far. I'm not sure if it is a matter of I haven't used enough hardener in the fiberglass, or it just seems like it doesn't set up quite as, the stuff on the bottom doesn't set up as good as a silicone mold. So we'll give this another try, and maybe I've just been getting too cute with it, trying to put 2 colors into a hold. but you know, there's not much to it. I'll kind of clean that up in a second. I'd like to maybe try and do one more, but I don't want to push my luck with the dirt on the other hold, so just try and do two. Okay, didn't need to put that much in there. So what I did is I just put a attachment on the drill and then just put water in the bucket and kind of stir this dirt around. I guess maybe this is the beauty of if you use the foundry sand, that it maintains its shape a little bit better. But you can see those I think will work all right. Kind of clean up that extra dirt that fell in there. So we'll give that a try in a minute. Cool. That's a good lesson to learn. So now we're going to make a bunch of fiberglass resin. So I've got several different containers. I like to note how much ounces they hold, 24. That's helpful with knowing how much hardener you're going to put in it. You can buy fiberglass resin like this at, you know, Walmart or auto part stores. I've been buying mine at auto part stores. So I'm going to mix up a bunch all at once because I got a bunch of holds that I want to make. And I think you can see in the screen I've got all these foot chip hold ones, and these are kind of cool. I just set foot chips down on the you know, on the table on something that I didn't mind trashing, and then did the same thing, just silicone all over it, and then the cheesecloth and more silicone. And you can see, you know, it isn't necessarily necessary to have the cheesecloth on it. It just helps it stay tough. But I've used this hold, this form a bunch of times to make a bunch of different holds. So we've got all these foot chip ones, and then we've got some little jugs, and I've got this big pincher. I'm just going to kind of have these kind of arranged so that I can pour stuff in them right away, and they're sitting relatively flat, because sometimes you don't have a lot of working time with the fiberglass, but I find that I typically have way more than I think I'm gonna. So I'm gonna fill these about halfway up, and this is a good way to measure this, because then you know you've got about 12 ounces of fiberglass, because this was a 24-ounce container halfway filled. It's real important to pay attention to the amount you're putting in there, because you need to know how much hardener you're going to put in it. And I used to think it wasn't that important, but trust me, you want to get it right, because otherwise it's just super pain in the ass trying to figure out why your holds aren't setting up quick enough. These always come with a couple hardeners. What I definitely recommend is buying a couple extra. I always tend to put about 30% more than it calls for, which is 10 drops for every ounce. So each one of these we're going to put, 120 drops in. I would definitely suggest starting out with a smaller amount of fiberglass at first, instead of trying to mix up huge quantities. Okay, so same thing. This one's a little bit bigger, so I'm just going to kind of eyeball it to the one next to it. Okay. So this is how I do this. Regular backyard dirt. Going to put about as much dirt as there is fiberglass in there. This is just a filler. Some people use drywall sand additive, which works really well, but it's expensive. So I found that backyard dirt works just about the same. Now you want to get some dry stuff. It seems like helps the most. And then what I do is I just add some color to it. I'm actually just going to make a straight black one. Probably don't even need that much black. All that dirt in there will turn the color pretty dark. These are just acrylic paints. We'll try and do a red one here. And we'll try and do a green one in this one. So what I'm going to do now is mix them all up. And I have found the easiest way to do this is with a drill. This thing is obviously super trashed, but it's just some kind of a, it was some kind of a drill bit. I don't exactly remember. Okay, I was trying to talk through that and realize you probably can't hear me. Alright, so we said 12 ounces, 10 drops per ounce, so 120 drops, and I like to add about 30% more, so I'm going to do 160 drops. So you guys get the point. I like to just sit down and count out every drop. I've tried to just guesstimate it, and I found that it's best to make sure that you have the exact right amount. So be back with you in a pinch. Okay, so sat there and counted out 100. So I'm going to just try and mix some colors. So, oh, you know what? Actually, a good piece of advice is WD-40 cents. Help a little bit with pulling them out. Imagine I fast forwarded through that section. So we've got our three colors all mixed up. Here's the dirt ones I made earlier. I put Okay, that part was probably rather boring. Some people really measure these out and make sure they have exact amounts for their molds, and I just kind of wing it. And that worked out pretty well. I actually only had two other molds that I could have filled. They were little ones though, so this is pretty awesome. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 holds in one run. So we'll see how they come out next time, which will probably be tomorrow. See you guys in 24 hours. I've done, or these ones that I did in the dirt, excuse me. So these were ones that had saran wrap and plastic bags around them. Sometimes this saran wrap pulls off well, and other times, like now, it does not. It just gets stuck in the, creased in there. So I'll have to spend some time with that, but it actually looks alright for a pinch. I'm not sure if I'm exactly sold on the dirt. If you want yours to look the best, then use a silicone mold. And just for a comparison, this is a silicone mold and this is a dirt mold. But I just was wanting to make more holds at a time, so tried to cheat without having to buy more silicone. Same thing, unfortunately, this saran wrap sticking. I think in that sense that plastic shopping bags are probably a better way to go. But yeah, you can see they aren't that clean looking, but they'll give you more holds if you want them. So just for reference, that's our whole take from yesterday. It's pretty awesome. It's generally just pop right out. That's why I think maybe the need for the cheesecloth isn't that great. I've used this particular mold, I don't know, like 20 times or so. Still in great shape. And you can see this was with 2 different colors, and actually they came out looking real nice. Let's take a look at this was one of the molds that we made yesterday from one of my wooden handholds that I'd made with a Dremel tool years ago. So I'll be gentle with it because it's the first time, but see the cheesecloth sticking a little bit. That's why you want to make sure you don't have any holes between the hole in the silicone, the cheesecloth will pull through. This one was a 3-color one. Could have done a better job at picking colors, I guess, but with some sanding, I mean, that's pretty awesome.